It is in this context that the question of the South must be dealt with again, not as a question of whether or not the black nation, black colony, exists there, as opposed to in the North as well, but rather as a practical question of strategy and tactics. Can the black liberation struggle, the struggle of all blacks in the country, gain advantage in the actual war of liberation by concentrating on building base areas in the South and territory with a concentration of black population? This is very clearly a different question than that of where the colony is, and so this question, the yes answer, is an important possibility. If the best potential for struggle in the South were realized, it is fully conceivable and legitimate that the struggle there could take on the character of a fight for separation, and any victories won in that direction would be important gains for the national liberation of the colony as a whole. However, because the colony is dispersed over the whole country and not just located in the Black Belt, winning still means the power and liberation of blacks in the whole country. Thus, even the winning of separate independence in the South would still be one step towards self-determination and not equivalent to winning it, which, because of the economic position of the colony as a whole, would still require overthrowing the state power of the imperialists, taking over production and the whole economy and power, etc. 7. The Revolutionary Youth Movement, Class Analysis. The Revolutionary Youth Movement program has hailed as a transition strategy which explained a lot of our past work and pointed to new directions for our movement. But as a transition to what? What was our overall strategy? Was the youth movement strategy just an organizational strategy because SDS is an organization of youth and we can move best with other young people? We have pointed to the vanguard nature of the black struggle in this country as part of the international struggle against American imperialism and the impossibility of anything but an international strategy for winning. Any attempt to put forth a strategy which, despite internationalist rhetoric, assumes a purely internal development to the class struggle in this country is incorrect. The Vietnamese and the Uruguayans and the Rhodesians and the blacks and third world peoples in this country will continue to set the terms for class struggle in America. In this context, why an emphasis on youth? Why should young people be willing to fight on the side of third world peoples? Before dealing with this question about youth, however, there follows a brief sketch of the main class categories in the white mother country which we think are important and which indicate our present estimation of their respective class interests, bearing in mind that the potential for various sections to understand and fight for the revolution will vary according to more than just their real class interests. Most of the population is of the working class, but which we mean not simply industrial or production workers, nor those who are actually working, but the whole section of the population which doesn't own productive property and so lives off of the sale of its labor power. This is not a metaphysical category either in terms of its interests, the role it plays, or even who is in it, which very often is difficult to determine. As a whole, the long-range interests of the non-colonial sections of the working class lie with overthrowing imperialism, with supporting self-determination for the oppressed nations, including the black colony, with supporting and fighting for international socialism. However, virtually all of the white working class also has short-range privileges from imperialism, which are not false privileges, but very real ones which give them an edge of vested interest and tie them to a certain extent to the imperialists, especially when the latter are in a relatively prosperous phase. When the imperialists are losing their empire, on the other hand, these short-range privileged interests are seen to be temporary, even though the privileges may be relatively greater over the faster increasing immiseration of the oppressed peoples. The long-range interests of workers in siding with the oppressed peoples are seen more clearly in the light of imperialism's impending defeat. Within the whole working class, the balance of anti-imperialist class interests with mother country's short-term privilege varies greatly. First, the most oppressed sections of the mother country working class have interests most clearly and strongly anti-imperialist. Who are the most oppressed sections of the working class? Millions of whites who have as oppressive material conditions as the blacks, or almost so, especially poor southern white workers, the unemployed or semi-employed, or those employed at very low wages for long hours and bad conditions, who are non-unionized or have weak unions, and extending up to include much of unionized labor which has it a little better off, but still is heavily oppressed and exploited. This category covers a wide range and includes the most oppressed sections, not only of production and service workers, but also some secretaries, clerks, etc. Much of this category gets some relative benefits, from imperialism, which constitutes some material basis for being racist or pro-imperialist, but overall it is itself directly and heavily oppressed, so that in addition to its long-range class interest on the side of the people of the world, its immediate situation also constitutes a strong basis for sharpening the struggle against the state and fighting through to revolution.